Okay, these math notes are on simplifying complex fractions, and this is going to help with homework problem number 45 in chapter 3. So these are strategies that you can use to help with 3-45. Okay, this is an example of a complex fraction. Fractions that are within a larger fraction. There's basically two main strategies to use. So we're going to go over those two main strategies. This right here in the math notes box is an example of the first strategy, and then here's an alternate method, the second strategy. The first one is to take a look at the denominators of all the fractions that are within the fraction. I see a denominator of b and a denominator of a. Then think of what would be a common denominator for all the fractions that are in there. Well, a common denominator would be a times b. So I'm going to use the common denominator of ab. So I'm going to multiply everything by ab. I'm going to multiply the top by ab. And to think about it easier, you could put ab over 1. I'm going to multiply the whole bottom by ab as well. Think about it as over 1. So when I simplify the top, the b can cancel with this b, and I end up with a times a squared over 1, and so we don't need the 1 anymore. When I do this, I'm going to distribute, so the ab times 1, I get ab, and then I need to have the subtraction sign, and then ab times 1 over a, the a's cancel out, and I have b left. So then I can simplify. Well, that's pretty much it. That's the simplified version. Okay, so we're all set. So that's strategy 1. The second strategy is what we've got down here. And that strategy is to take and change it into a situation where you have a fraction divided by a fraction. So I'm going to need to put the two pieces on the bottom together here to make it one fraction. The top's all set. We're all fine. So we've got a over b divided by, now I need to make a common denominator between these two. 1 can change to a common denominator of a, so we would have a over a, which is the same as the 1, and then 1 minus a. So that simplifies to, we've got a over b, and then so a minus 1 for the numerator over a as the common denominator. Then fraction dividing is the same as when we invert and multiply. So if I rewrite the a over b, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator, which will be a over a minus 1. And then we do a times a squared, and then b times ab, b times negative 1, negative b, and we end up with the same results as we did before. So there's the two strategies. So let's apply that to the next section here. Okay, we've got a complex fraction here. So you choose a strategy. How about multiplying everything by t, because the only denominator in a small fraction here is t. So I'm going to multiply everything up here by t and everything down here by t and simplify. The reason this is okay is because multiplying by t over t is the same as multiplying by 1, and so the value actually doesn't change. So I'm going to distribute t times t, I get t squared, and then t times 1 over t makes that t over t, and t over t is the same, it reduces to 1, and then t times t is t squared, and that's it. That's the simplified version right there. All right, so on B, how about let's try the other strategy with this one. Let's make a common denominator here. I've got x is the denominator, so I need to have an x in the denominator over here. So I need to multiply this by x over x to make that have a common denominator. So I end up with the 1 over x squared over x plus my y squared over x. Add those together and we end up with x squared plus y squared over that common denominator of x. Then we invert and multiply. So it's going to end up being 1 times the reciprocal of all that. Well, 1 times the reciprocal of this is just the reciprocal. And so there we are, simplified. Okay, now these two are simply, well, this one especially is simply just doing the invert and multiply. So if we invert and multiply on this, we end up with the square root of 3 over 2 and multiply that by 2 over 1, and that quickly and easily simplifies to being just the square root of 3. So this one's such a simple one. Let's take a moment to show how and why that works. The reason that you invert and multiply is when you're trying to simplify a fraction, you want to get rid of the denominator. So if I multiply the bottom and the top by 2 over 1, that makes the denominator here become 1, and that makes this become square root of 3, and we end up with square root of 3. Okay, so this one, invert and multiply, and we end up with 2 over the square root of 2. Well, we don't want to leave it that way. We need to rationalize the denominator. Don't ever leave a square root in the denominator. So we multiply by square root of 2 over square root of 2. We end up with 2 root 2 over 2 times 2 square root of 4. Well, square root of 4 is 2, so we have 2 over the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 over 2, and then 2 divided by 2 ends up being just plain old square root of 2 in the end. Okay, so take note of this, try to remember the two methods, and that's it.